It's election day, and you still have about 2 hours to get those ballots to an official drop box. So if you're still undecided, it's okay. It just means that you take your decision-making really seriously. It definitely doesn't mean that you completely forgot what with literally everything else going on right now. Whatever the reason, buckle up, because we're going big on politics tonight. President Trump tweeting about TriMet, about 9,000 people running to be mayor of Portland, and John Legend. Loves all of you. Here's the story. Every election is determined by the people who show up. I love that quote from Larry Sabato. He's a well-known political analyst. It's simple, it's spot on, and tonight, it's never sounded so romantic. Accompanied by John Legend. It's also how we're going to start the story tonight. Hi, I'm Dan Haggerty. I like to read quotes on this show. Your quotes and your comments and your thoughts and your concerns, so send them my way. Email us at thestory@kgw.com or find me on Facebook and Instagram. Use Twitter and that hashtag #HeyDan. I can't promise that I'll read your quote to John Legend, but who knows? In fact, I want to start tonight with an email that I got from Mary. She asked very politely, please, no politics. It's everywhere. We don't watch your show to see/hear about politics. Thank you. And thank you for the message, Mary. We encourage all of you out there watching to let us know what you think of the show. And Mary, here's what I have to say about your very polite email. I'm sorry. Because it's election day in Oregon. So for the next few minutes, all we're going to be talking about is politics. But Mary, please, I'm begging you, don't turn off the TV. Don't walk away. We're not CNN. We're not Fox. We're not going to be turning the outrage meter up to an 11. That's not who we are. We are going to try and prove that to you tonight. See, our goal is to help you better understand your ballot and the people on it, and really how much the state could change in a matter of hours. I mean, aside from some state races that will show back up in November, most of Portland's city council is on the ballot. 19 people are running for mayor. 35 people are running for seats on city council. The only person on Portland City Council not having to defend their seat tonight is Joanne Hardesty, who was just elected in 2018, which means there is a chance that she could go from the least experienced member of city council to the most experienced by tomorrow. Who says politics aren't exciting? Mary. All right. Look, let's go over some nuts and bolts. Yes, you still have time to vote right now, just not by mail. You have until 8 o'clock to drop your ballot off in an official ballot drop box. And right now you're probably asking, but Dan, where are those boxes? Where can I find them? You can find them all listed on the Oregon Secretary of State's website, though I am sure at this point a lot of you have already voted. So we're going to start getting the results pretty quickly as soon as the metaphorical polls close in Oregon. And I'm going to be helping to guide you through that tonight on our streaming platforms, and I hope to see a lot of you there too. In the meantime, let's talk about what could happen tonight. You know, not every race could have a clear winner because politics sometimes, likes to make things as complicated as humanly possible. So I talked to Maggie Vespa earlier about what we might know after tonight and what we might not. Okay, Maggie Vespa joining us now. Maggie, let's start by talking about the races that could be potentially decided tonight.
Yeah, so basically, according to Oregon law, nonpartisan races can be decided in the primary if a candidate gets a majority or 51% of the vote. So here tonight, we're talking about potentially Portland mayor. That race could be decided. Multiple city commissioner spots. We'll definitely see a winner in the Multnomah County District Attorney's race. It's nonpartisan. The office is being vacated, and there are only two candidates, Mike Schmidt and Ethan Knight. So yeah, somebody's got to get the majority there. Ballot measures will also be decided tonight. That includes 26210, which is Metro's $250 million homeless services tax. If voters approve it, it'll put a 1% tax on high earners and businesses that generate more than $5 million a year in revenue. And then, Dan, Portlanders are also being asked to renew the city gas tax to basically pay for ongoing road maintenance. So that'll be decided as well.
Let's talk about the partisan races, the ones that will certainly move on, because we got some big ones to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Congressional races, big ones. For instance, this go around, Representative Greg Walden from Oregon's 2nd District is stepping down. Several candidates on both sides are up for the job. Representative Kurt Schrader, 5th District, is facing 2 Democratic challengers, and the winner of that primary will face a Republican challenger in November. Same goes for Oregon Secretary of State. Candidates on both sides are vying to fill Bev Clarino's vacancy, and she, of course, the current Secretary of State, is stepping down. And then, of course, this is a presidential election year, which always does a lot to boost voter turnout. So there you go with that.
Let's talk about turnout for just 1 second, because campaigns have been so unsure about what this is going to look like, considering we're amid a pandemic.
Yeah, they've been really frank with us. They've been saying, their normal tactics are out the window. They can't hold rallies. They can't go knocking on your door. They can't have town halls. And so, we've covered this a little bit. We've really seen them adjust. They've had yard sign distribution, contact-free yard sign distribution, online debates streamed live, and they had headline-grabbing endorsements. Some of them were interesting. Former Trailblazer Bill Walton there, he endorsed the Metro Homeless Services Tax. And campaign managers just told us, frankly, no one knows how to do this, how to attract voters amid a pandemic. And to that point, we've been tracking returns. As of this morning, over 35%, just over 35% of registered Oregon voters had turned in their ballots. And comparing that to the last presidential primary in 2016, overall turnout was about 54%. And of course, these last 24 hours are always huge. So we'll see if that kind of makes up the gap there. And political scientists are going to be studying this, we've been told, for a long time to come.
I bet, yeah. Interesting statistics. Maggie, thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Sure.
It is interesting. It's politics, right? Mary, you still with us? Interesting to you? If you are, thank you. That was a lot of politics. I know, I'm sorry, but it's not quite over, not yet, because we need to talk about the race for the Multnomah County DA. Wait, before you go, maybe this can convince you to stay.
'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections.
How about that, Mary? That guy can sing, right? I like to think that song, he's singing about democracy. Even though that was a song that my wife and I danced to at our wedding, and she's probably thinking, really, that song's about democracy? Regardless, John Leonard is actually really, really active in one specific area of politics, and that's district attorney races. He even weighed in on Multnomah County's DA race today, making an endorsement and encouraging people to vote. In 2018, Legend tweeted about Washington County's DA race too, but didn't go as far as making an endorsement for a candidate. See, Mary, not so bad. That was Chrissy Teigen's husband. They're famous and beautiful, and so is politics. For what it's worth, John Legend has not really waded into Portland's mayor or city council races, so that one's going to be up to you to make up your own mind of the, 12 million people running for various seats. Just kidding, it's only 54, which is still a ton. I talked to Pat Doris about this incredibly busy series of races. Okay, Pat Doris joining us now. The media loves to throw around terms like unprecedented and historic, but this really is a big election because we could see some major changes happening with our leaders here in the city.
Well, that's absolutely right. It's one of the first times in quite a while that 4 out of the 5 positions are technically up. It doesn't seem likely that many will change, but the mayor and Chloe Eudaly are the incumbents who are running for re-election again. And, they're going to face challenges. Chloe Eudaly is going to face a significant one with former Mayor Sam Adams. So that may be a runoff. Tonight we need to watch and see if anybody gets 50% plus 1, then they've won the election. If they don't, then they go to a special runoff election, which will happen in November.
You talk about the 4 of the 5 seats are up for grabs right now. And then the 5th seat is Joanne Hardesty, who is only in the middle of her very first term as a commissioner. So she's brand new to this as well. When you think about the potential for this much change, what does that really mean for a city like Portland?
Well, it means that there will be a lot of jockeying for position because, with 5 commissioners, you always have a little bit of give and take on the political side behind the scenes. So if there are new personalities that are going to come in, it'll take a while probably to really see where the alliances build and in what direction that goes. There was a lot of talk about homelessness and the housing issue before COVID-19. During COVID-19, the candidates have started to talk about we need more federal help and we need more communication from the city. So any one of those could play out. I sort of think odds on bet is for Wheeler to be reelected as mayor. Not sure about the other positions.
Got it. Pat Doris, we'll be watching closely tonight. We appreciate your help in this reporting.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, let's zero in now on 3 races that I think are fairly unique. There's a race for Portland City Council seat and 2 state house races. All 3 candidates are running with similar clouds of sexual scandals hanging over them. First, maybe the most high-profile example would be Sam Adams running against Chloe Eudaly on City Council. Many of you probably know the story of his time as Portland's mayor. He left office in 2012. A relationship with an intern became public, and the Attorney General investigated claims that relationship started when the intern was 17, but no charges were ever filed. Adams only ever admitted to lying about the affair, but maintains that it all happened when the intern was 18. Then in 2017, he was accused of sexually harassing a former assistant while mayor. He denied that. He has before, and he told us last year that he wants to clear his name. Now here's someone else you might remember also asking for a second chance. Jeff Cogan is a former Multnomah County chair running for state representative in House District 46 in East Portland. He resigned as chair in 2013 after an affair with a health department employee and accusations of drug use. He says he's hoping people can forgive him. Meantime, there's a guy on the ballot right now in the middle of a sexual misconduct investigation. State Representative Diego Hernandez was accused by 7 people earlier this month. He denied it all, but the House Speaker wants him to resign. He's running unopposed for re-election tonight for House District 47, which is in Northeast Portland. Whew! All right, that was a lot of politics. Almost done. Mary, you still with us? Mary, are we losing Mary? Guys, we're losing Mary. Play John. Play John. Hurry up. Play it.
See, I still want you to stay. We're just ordinary people.
Are you back? She's back. All right, she's back. Good to have you. And look, I don't think it's a political segment, unless we talk about President Trump, right? I think there's no controversy in saying that he tweets a lot. Love him or hate him, you can't deny that. He loves Twitter. And this morning, Portland got a little shout out on his Twitter account. He tweeted, "I am proud to announce the Portland area's TriMet will receive over $184 million in federal funds to support continued operations of their transit system. This will keep workers on the job and help the economic recovery by ensuring reliable transportation." He also announced funding for public transit in other cities like Seattle. Now, the thing is, we actually kind of knew about this already. I mean, the country didn't. The country learned about it in this tweet, but we did. Back in April, TriMet told the Oregonian that they expected to get that much money from the federal stimulus package. So this isn't really anything that new to us. But how much will it help? Well, TriMet, like everyone else, is suffering big time right now. Ridership is down 70%. They also get about 2/3 of their revenue from payroll taxes, and that's expected to be way down. So TriMet says this federal funding will help stop potential layoffs and service cuts for now. All right. Let's switch gears here for just a second and switch gears from politics, talk about something else. We want to take a minute and recognize some student journalists in Portland that just got national awards. And we think that their work is worth your time. So please, you should check it out. First up, Lily LaMadrid from Portland State University. She wrote this piece for the PSU Vanguard about dating during a pandemic. It is a really well-written, very sweet story, and it's really funny. The Society of Professional Journalists honored her in what they're calling the CCC Awards, which stands for College Coronavirus Coverage. Her story was picked as one of the best in the country out of about 1,000 entries. So congrats to Lily. Well done. Make sure that you read her piece on the Vanguard's website.
Renewable energy is energy from a source that is not depleted when used. Common examples are wind energy,
hydroelectric energy,
and of course, solar energy. On the other hand, non-renewable resources, like coal and natural gas, won't last forever.
Those are some even younger student journalists. This is a group of 8th graders from Access Academy in Portland. They got 3rd place in the C-SPAN Student Cam Awards. They made a 6-minute documentary about renewable energy and looked into what positions presidential candidates have on the issue. So a big congratulations to Dorothy Swanson-Blaker, Malia Lee, and Ania Leonardo. We here at The Story know how shooting and editing something like this is not easy at all. So please keep up the good work. That said, when I was in 8th grade, I failed to place in the science fair despite staying up all night to work on my poster board. So enjoy the wins, kids. I will never know the feeling. Kroger workers are no longer heroes, at least when it comes to their pay. And a viewer wants to know, if the Oregon Supreme Court overturns Governor Brown's stay-at-home order, what else goes away? And who needs the KGW vault when we have your memories of the eruption of Mount St. Helens? We'll share some when the story continues. All right, welcome back. Happy Election Day. Remember, you still have until 8 p.m. to get those ballots into a drop box. So if you have to leave now, I get it. Just leave your TV on. I think that still counts for the ratings, people, and that's all that matters. If you already voted, great. You can stick around and talk to us using the hashtag HeyDan or email the story at kgw.com. And I want to tell you, I just heard in the emails from Mary, Oxford. She said, yes, of course I'll stay. Mary. It was the John Legend, wasn't it? Meanwhile, Patricia Tawney asked a really good question to us as well. If the governor's emergency declaration isn't legal, does that mean Oregon won't be eligible for federal emergency funds anymore? We spent about a quarter of our show yesterday trying to untangle all the legal gymnastics that happened yesterday. And as it stands right now, the governor's stay-at-home order is still in place. See, the Oregon Supreme Court has put a stay on the judge's decision to overturn it. So until the High Court makes a final ruling, the governor's order is still the law of the land for now. Patricia, to answer your question, if that order does end up being overturned by the high courts, all that changes is the stay-at-home order is no longer in effect. The governor's original state of emergency will still be in place. So will the federal disaster declaration, and the CARES Act that Congress passed will still apply to Oregonians. So those federal dollars should still roll in, regardless of what the high court decides. So I want to read now a tweet from Sherry Newton, who is pretty sharp. Noticed that we left out one of the 3 metro areas in our reopening coverage last week. She was hoping for information on Clackamas County. Sherry, you and us both. See, at the time, we were only able to track down specifics on Multnomah and Washington counties being unable to enter phase 1 yet. So sorry we didn't explain that a little more clearly in the story that we ran, but I'm going to try and make up for it now. And the rest of you who messaged us as well are probably interested about us neglecting Clackamas County. So Brittany Falkers has our progress report.
As Oregon works towards reopening, Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties are making progress. One of their biggest barriers, contact tracing.
You can go from a few cases exponentially to a very large number of cases incredibly rapidly. This disease is infectious in a way that's really tricky for us.
Tuesday morning, Multnomah and Clackamas County commissioners met virtually in their respective counties for an update. In Multnomah County, they're working to add more workers to meet the governor's required 15 contact tracers per 100,000 people. Right now, they have 14 full-time and 36 part-time staff. The goal? To have around 130 people.
So I do think it makes sense that with this disease, especially with how fast it spreads, we do need more of that capacity in place and built up.
In Clackamas County, they've increased their contact tracers from 7 to now 25. They're working to hire more, including recruiting from local medical and nursing schools.
You can imagine leading an organization where you have processes in place for 6 to 8 staff, then up to 25 right now, and then building that out. It just becomes very complicated, and we need to make sure that the work we're performing is of quality.
Counties are also focused on being able to handle an increase in cases once they do reopen.
And as we open up, we will see more cases, so we want to make sure communities are prepared for that and understand that.
Another factor for both Multnomah and Clackamas, supply of personal protective equipment. Right now, Multnomah is close to their goals. They say hospitals have an adequate supply. Where they're lacking is with first responders. It's similar for Clackamas.
This has been an ongoing concern to make sure that healthcare providers and our first responders have what they need, especially those that are serving our most vulnerable populations.
Meanwhile, Washington County announced Tuesday their Board of Commissioners approved a reopening plan, following the 7 criteria set by Governor Brown. They've approved a plan, but stress the board approval does not mean the county is ready to apply for Phase 1 of the governor's reopening plan. The 3 counties aim to be able to enter Phase 1 reopening by early to mid-June. Brittany Falkers, KGW News.
If you're an employee of Kroger, your hero days are over. The company, which owns Fred Meyer, is paying its workers an extra $2 an hour, at least was, for what the marketing people at Kroger were calling hero pay for working through this pandemic. But on May 2nd, that money went away, and all those heroes went back to making the pre-hero wages. Then this letter went out to some of those now former heroes who claimed that Kroger claimed were over-hero paid, and they were asked to pay back the money or risk going to collections. Wow, that hero treatment went out the door pretty quickly, didn't it? Kroger didn't end up following through on that. A spokesperson said that we've instructed our payroll department to directly inform the small number of associates affected by the recent overpayment of emergency leave of absence pay that we will not seek repayment. Instead, on Friday, Kroger announced $130 million in thank you pay for their workers. That rounds out to be about $400 for full-time heroes and $200 for part-time. And listen, Kroger's dealing with some bad PR right now. Kind of hard to call something hero pay and then take it away before the hero work is done, especially with so many people out there buying groceries right now. But let's not forget that the only reason we're talking about the money going away is because they paid it in the first place. And to all those heroes helping keep my family fed, thank you. Now, look, we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about the 40th anniversary of the Mount St. Helens eruption, and so many of you shared your memories with us from May 18th, 1980. I mean, seriously, a guy literally called me just before the show to tell me about the ash that was falling outside of his home. People always seem surprised when I answer my desk phone. Anyway, keep sending them in. We want to hear them through email, Facebook, or use that hashtag #HeyDan on Twitter. We love to see them, and I'd like to read a few of them for you now. From Darlene. Hey, Dan. I was 9 years old when the mountain blew. I remember ash falling here in Portland. It looked like falling snow, but of course it wasn't. I remember going to the bakery thrift store just down the street from my apartment, and halfway there, this woman was going past me, and she stopped and had a mask, and she put it on me. She said, "You poor thing." It was a day I will never forget. From Scott. Hey, Dan. My Mount St. Helens memory is riding around on my trike in the ashfall like a super snowfall. Ironically, it was the last time I was forced to wear a mask. 2 bits in history, 40 years apart. From Chip. Hey, Dan. My wife and I were graduate students in Pullman, Washington in 1980. We were on a long bike ride the morning of the eruption. As we rode towards home, about 12 miles west of Pullman, the sky began to darken. It was darker than night. There were no stars, no light whatsoever. The eeriest thing, there were no insects nor bird songs, just complete silence. We knew this must be the eruption as we were staying informed of the mountain conditions. We had actually planned to spend some time on Mount Adams to watch the steam and rumblings. But my wife said she was not feeling well, though we were already packed to go. So we suspended our trip to camp on the mountain. Instead, against the radio warnings to not drive, we went to town so she could see a doctor. Worried about damage to my '68 Bronco, I rigged a water filter in front of my air filter to keep ash from damaging my engine. We made it to the doctor's office to learn we'd be expecting our first child.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt Safino. We're going to stick on the volcanology theme and talk a little geology here. A lot of people have been asking us, hey, what about Mount Hood? What are the odds of Mount Hood erupting anytime soon or like within our lifetime or, anything like that? So let's do a little bit of Mount Hood talk and talk the geology of Mount Hood a bit. First of all, its history. First of all, I'm going to show you some video of the summit of Mount Hood because what's interesting about this is the crater of Mount Hood. Up near the top, anyway, there's an area called Crater Rock. You can see it from Timberline Lodge. It's that big kind of plug of rock. It's hidden by the clouds in this piece of video right here, but just below the summit. And that is actually the remnant of the last lava dome, which is the last eruption on Mount Hood. Mount Hood is quite a bit different, though, from Mount St. Helens in its eruptive history. So let's look at the eruptive history of Mount Hood, going back to the last time it erupted at all. That was in the mid-1800s, and residents in the Portland area and around Oregon reported seeing small steam and ash explosions on Mount Hood. So that's what we saw there. 200 years ago, though, and this is just before Lewis and Clark arrived in Oregon, the lava dome at Crater Rock, which is what I was just talking about, did erupt. It was a pyroclastic flow and lahars, and I'll explain those terms, in the south and west valleys in Mina Tephra Falls. Tephra is lava that becomes airborne because of the eruption. Now, if you go back further in history, there were also debris avalanches that came off Mount Hood and multiple episodes of lava dome growth. And geologists say that's what Mount Hood does. Unlike Mount St. Helens, which has these explosive events and a history of them, Mount Hood more commonly has lava flows and lava dome buildups. What happens with a lava dome is you end up getting lava getting stuck over the top of a vent. Then eventually it collapses and it goes downhill. Now that can lead to something called the pyroclastic flow. That is a mixture of ash, rock, lava that flows at 100 miles an hour, as much as 1,500 degrees. Those, of course, are dangerous. But the bigger danger comes from what the pyroclastic flows create. On their way down, they melt snow and ice and a lot of it. That's called the lahar, which is a slurry of mud, rock and water that ends up in our river valleys, and because most people live in the river valleys, those are the greatest dangers from any eruptive activity on Mount Hood. In fact, when Lewis and Clark first got here, the Sandy River, they called it the River of Quicksand. That's how the Sandy River got its name. All of that sand that they experienced was sand and debris from the last eruption on Mount Hood. The river, of course, has scoured that out now, but that's how the Sandy River got its name. We'll be back right after this.
All right, Jeff wrote in and said, love the dialogue with Mary tonight, hoping that she's sticking around for good. Hashtag, hey Mary, still there. She is. Maybe you caught it in the middle of the show. She hit me up on my email and said, she's sticking around. She didn't say if she's still into politics, but Ryan said, my favorite part of the show is when you address the critics. There are always going to be critics. If everybody liked me, that'd be boring. And if you haven't been able to tell, being boring is like my biggest fear in the world. So thanks for watching tonight. We're going to be streaming the election coverage. We've got the news at 6:30 coming up next with Laurel Porter. In the meantime, see you tomorrow.